One of my favorite things to do is to play games with friends. One of my least favorite things to do is to have to ask someone to help me read or figure out how to play the game.
My name is Angela and I'm a visually impaired designer.
Hey everyone, how are you doing today? In today's video, I'm excited to share with you 18 different ideas of board games and card games that will work well for people who are visually impaired and blind. Now, keeping in mind that everyone sees differently and they see different amounts of things. Some people can see shapes, some people can see colors, some people can even read a little bit or use some type of help aid like a magnifier to help them see. So I'll provide a list of ideas that I think will work well in general, and then it's up to you to figure out which ones you think will work for your circumstance. I love to play games with my friends and family. But sometimes it can be embarrassing because I can't see what's going on my cards or on the game board, and things are so visually complex or they're just poorly designed, just flat out poorly designed. But one of my least favorite things is feeling like I am slowing down the game or hindering it and making it adapt in some way. These are all games that I've played and that I find easy to play and I haven't found as a burden at all. I do have some vision so I can read when it's high contrast and larger print. Alright, so make sure to subscribe to my channel below so you can see more videos like this one. Now let's move on to the games. The first game idea I have for you is a card game. Skyjo is a card game that's simple with large black numbers, and Skyjo is a math game. So it can be played either as an educational game or just for fun. It's nice because everyone has their individual decks in front of them and it's a slower paced game, so someone can take their time to figure out what they need to do in front of them before it's their next turn. I really like the simplicity of the design of the cards, but also just the style of the game. It makes it easy for me to figure out what I need to do in my downtime between turns. My second game idea is Phase 10. Now, Phase 10 is similar for the design of the game. It just has one large number on each card, so this makes it easier for me to do. It also is slower pace. If you haven't played it, Phase 10 is a game where there's 10 different phases that you have to complete. And so each round, you try to complete a phase and you try to get a different group of cards. So whether it's getting a full house, it can be getting a group of a certain number or a run. And it's a slower paced game where you take turns and you draw cards and try to get your phase. Skipbo is my next game idea. This is also a card game that has just simple one number that's large on a card. It's also color coordinated, but everyone has their own deck in front of them that they use to help them get rid of their Skipbo pile, which is the objective of the game. And then you play cards in the middle to get rid of your Skipbo cards so that you can win. It's a pretty simple game that just uses numbers 1 through 12, and it's also not a speed game, so it's great for helping people who need to take a little bit more time. The next game idea is Uno. Uno is a classic. I think that most people have played Uno. It's very simple. You just have numbers on the card and the colors, and you can either put a color or the number that matches with the card that is down in the discard pile currently. There are also cards that have Braille on them for Uno, and so people who read Braille can participate without even being able to see the cards if it's someone who knows Braille. If they don't know Braille, then you can learn just the numbers, and then that way you can still participate in the game without having to know all Braille. My next idea is playing cards. Now there's normal cards, there's large print cards, there's Braille cards. I'll make sure to link all of these down below, but this way there's an option for everyone. So it doesn't change how games are played, whether it's a normal size deck of cards, a large print deck of cards, or even one with Braille on them. So of course this can be a great option. There's so many games that you can play with playing cards, and you can play with 1 to 2 or 3 or 4 people, or you can play games with larger groups of people. So I definitely think that everyone should have a deck of cards that works well for them. The next game idea is Rummikub. This is a classic older game where you have little chips that have numbers on them and you place them in the middle and you play with other people while interacting and taking turns. The great thing about Rummikub is there's a version made of large print specifically for people with lower vision so that more people can participate in them. And a lot of the Rummikub games that I've looked at are also tactile numbers, so you can fill them if you can't see them as well. My next game idea for you is Bananagrams. Now, if you haven't played Bananagrams, it's where everyone has their own little Scrabble board in front of them, and they try to use the letters to form words and connect how they go together. But instead of having to look at the complicated Scrabble board in the middle of the group and have to read what other people are putting on the board while taking turns, you simply look at your own board right in front of you, and you can move them around and look at them closer or do whatever you need to see your board. So this is super nice because it's individualized. There's even versions that are large print for Bananagrams. My next game idea for you is Jenga. Jenga is the game where you take 3 blocks and you stack them on top of each other, crisscrossing it so that it makes a pattern and builds a tower. And then everyone takes turns pulling out a block from the tower, and whoever knocks over the tower first loses. This game would be great for anyone of any visual level because you don't have to be able to see anything. You can find loose blocks just by feeling around and touching it. There's literally no need to be able to see. In fact, it might be fun to blindfold yourselves and play this game. Maybe I'll have to try that. My next game idea for you is Mancala. Mancala is a game that has a board where you just have marbles in it and you move the marbles from one space to the next. So it's a 2-player game. You take turns moving the marbles, and the way that it lands specifically into your little board part is the points that you get. So the goal is to get as many points as you can before the other person gets more than you. This is also a tactile game. It requires no sight. You would be able to touch and feel anything that you need to be able to do in this game. It requires no vision at all. Alright, my next game idea is Taboo. Now, I was a little hesitant to share this idea, but I decided to include it. Taboo is the game where the person who is going, or is it, has a word that they're trying to get other people to guess. And then they have a list of 4 or 5 words that they can't say, which are the taboo words, to help their team guess their word. And then you get a point for every word that your team guesses. Now, this game is played in teams, and for the most part, other than when you're the person giving the clues, it's all auditory. So you can listen to what the people are saying and try to guess what the answer is without having to look at anything. Now, the reason why I said I was hesitant to share this one might be embarrassing or difficult for some people to read the words on the cards. They are fairly accessible to people who are visually impaired, but I think people who are legally blind or who are totally blind would have a harder time reading these unless they had some type of aid that really helps them read. Unless they choose just to be a person who's guessing the clues. The next game idea I have for you is a simple one that works well for children or adults. It's a classic, Tic Tac Toe. So there's several Tic Tac Toe boards that are out there that are tactile and larger. It's like a game you can keep on your coffee table. We have one on our coffee table where people can just play Tic Tac Toe when they have a minute here and there and they're bored. My next game idea is Connect 4. This is a 2-player game where each person has a different color. I specifically picked a board that has high contrasting checkers so that it's easy for the person to tell between their checkers and their opponent's checkers. And the board is wood, and so they really pop out with the contrast of the wood. I also have a second set that I'll link below that's from Maxi Aids, which is a website that sells things for people who are visually impaired, and their Connect 4 game uses tactile pieces on the actual checkers so that you can tell the difference between them without having to be able to see the colors. This could also be helpful to someone who's colorblind. My next game idea is the one game that I don't own out of this list that I really want, that I've played, but I just don't own. The game is called Pantone. Now, it might be a little nerdy to me because I love Pantone colors. I love colors in general. I'm a designer after all. But this game can be super fun for anyone. So the idea is, if you don't know what a Pantone is, it's a specific color that is assigned to a number. And so What you do is there's a bunch of different Pantone cards. You arrange them in a way so that your team has to guess what you're trying to create out of just the color. So it's very low detail, you only have the color to go off of, and you'd be surprised how many things you can recognize just by the colors alone. I thought this was a good idea for people who are visually impaired or even maybe legally blind who can decipher different colors, because they actually might have an advantage because they're used to seeing things blurred into just colors and shapes. And so their brain's gonna kind of connect what these objects people are trying to build off of just the colors are, more than someone who's used to seeing a lot of detail. I'm really excited about this game, and I definitely plan to get it soon. My next game idea is more of a child game. It's called Hiss, which is a game where you build snakes. This is also a game based on color. And so it's super simple. You just have cards that have parts of a snake and each of them are colored. And so each card has 2 colors on it. So basically you line them up so that the colors line up to build a full snake from the head to the tail. And the person whoever builds the most full snakes and gets the snake wins. It's very simple, it's easy to play, you don't have to read anything or decipher anything other than being able to see color if it's a head or a tail. So this could work for a large range of children and also be a fun game to help learn colors or just being able to match things and make that connection. My next game idea is Apples to Apples. This also is a classic to me. It's a game where each person has a group of describing cards, and then the person who is up has a card that has a word, or it's basically a noun. So they have a person or a thing or whatnot, and then the people use their describing cards to guess what they think that person will use to describe the thing. It can be a hilarious game. It's super simple. You do have to be able to read the cards, but they're fairly high contrast. And I recently looked at their rebrand and it looks like it has higher contrast, easier to read. So I enjoy that part of it. But also it would be an easy game for someone who has a magnifier or a way of reading with a little bit of help. I decided to include this even though it requires a little bit of reading, because it's a slower paced game where you don't have to be rushing a ton and you can take your time to read when you have downtime in between turns to make sure you know what your cards say. My next game idea for you is Coup. Now this is one of my favorite games. I know I've said that a lot, but I really enjoy the game Coup. Now Coup is a little bit more visually complex, but it's a super simple game, and there's like, I believe five different type of characters, and you just have 2 of those placed in front of you. You don't have to be able to read anything other than the name on the actual cards that you have, but then you're given a little graphic card that tells you what their abilities are. So basically each person, ambassador, assassinator, there's just multiple of those. You have to know what their abilities are, but once you've played a couple of times, I don't have to read that card anymore. So it's just getting to know the game well enough. You can play it without that, and then you just need to remember what they do, be able to see what you have, and they're also color coded, so if color helps you, you can remember an ambassador is the green and orange card. That's something that I use to help me with this game. So I would say either you need someone to be able to explain to you and be patient with you the first couple of times until you just really nail it and you have it in your head which each one of the characters are, or be able to use some type of aid to help you read the character cards until you're familiar enough with the game. But I would say it's a pretty simple game. Alright, my next idea is a chess/checkers board. Now this one is also from Maxi Aids, and it's a board that can be used for either chess or checkers, and they're tactile. They place into the board, and so they have little pegs that go into the board so that they don't move around. So if you can't see or you're low vision and you're trying to fill around on the board, it adapts to the way that the peg stays in, and you can fill around so that you're not knocking everything over when you're playing the game, which is super nice. So I think this is a great option. The game's not played any different for someone who's sighted or visually impaired. My last game idea for you today is Dominoes. Dominoes, if you haven't played, are the little rectangle tiles, and they have 2 numbers on them, 1 on each side, 1 through 12. So basically everyone has tiles, and you take turns lining up the numbers on the board. And the objective of the game is to get rid of all of your dominoes. Well, I think this is a good game because it's super simple. It's based on just the numbers 1 through 12. They're tactile. Usually they're concave, so they're not raised dots, but they're still dots that you can feel if you can't see the numbers. They're color coded as well, if that's something that helps you. But overall, it's a simple game that moves a little bit slower. It might require a little patience for the person's turn who's visually impaired to be able to see what other people have played. But if there's people who are willing to just say, you know, there's a 12, a 2, a 4, a 1 available on the board, and kind of help them in that way, if that's not too embarrassing for them or something that they're going to be worried about, then it could work well. Alright, so that's all my game ideas for you today. I hope that some of them sounded exciting, that you might want to try out. I'll make sure to link all the games down below so you can check them out if you want. I would love to hear in the comments below what your favorite games are. I'm always looking for new games to play and try, so I'd love to hear especially what simple games you like. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel below if you want to see more videos like this one, and give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. I hope that you all have a fantastic week, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!